Well, welcome to the Envirothon Roundtable. Sorry, the last session went over a little bit, so we're just getting started for folks to have a break. This session really will be a little bit informal to talk about what Envirothon is, hopefully plant the seed for if you're a district that is not participating in Envirothon. Maybe this is the time to ask questions, find out more. So we'll talk about kind of Envirothon in general, talk about the state events, and then depending on the time we have, we might go into kind of an official meeting of Envirothon business. And you're welcome to be part of that meeting just to see how everything plays out. We have a few folks online, so thanks for joining us. So Larry Davis, who's part of the committee, is also on there. Renee Hadley from the Walla Walla County Conservation District is online. Claire Pine with Blue CD, and then Amanda Newell with Cascadia. So first, I know yesterday I did a brief introduction about Envirothon. And so how many people are familiar with Envirothon? Mostly everybody in the room? Okay, awesome. Okay, cool. So we don't need to start at square one. Envirothon has a state committee that we meet once a month to talk about different initiatives. Like I mentioned, it is a nonprofit arm of the commission, and the committee is made up of representation across the state from CDs and some agency folks, so NRCS, WACD, Washington Conservation Society. And we have many of those folks in the room here. So I might ask those people to kind of introduce themselves. I'll start with the board. So the board goes through a 2-year election cycle. Yeah, I'm currently serving as chair as my just finished my first year. Nikki Wolf, she was previously with King CD, and she was the previous chair for a number of years. Before that, Cindy Pierce over in the corner, she is a guru on Envirothon. So yeah, she was before that. And Nikki Wolf is still serving with the committee as a facilitator. Then our vice chair, if you want to introduce yourself.
Well, I could go.
And then our secretaries, so they're sharing the position this year. So
Yeah, staff, co-secretary, and
yes. Right. And then finally, our treasurer.
For staff, for conservation district.
Yeah. So these are our official board members that have the committee, keep the committee moving. It is all volunteer positions. We are doing this, some of us have designated money for Envirothon. Some of it just gets tagged on to other initiatives that we're doing. So, and then we are made up of committee members that are also at other CDs. So if you guys want to raise your hand, who's on the committee technically, or receives the emails. If you receive the emails, so awesome. So these guys are all part of supporting that greater effort, and they've all played an essential role. Emma, do you want to talk real quick about your position? I would just love to share what your position is with Envirothon and your AmeriCorps experience.
yeah, so I'm in the conservation district, and my role is primarily supporting Envirothon. So I help organize the regional, the Northwest, and then I've been available to help with all of the fundraising activities for Envirothon this year. So we had our auction back in November. We have trivia coming up tonight, and then it's external fundraising to get a grant from NCF Envirothon, which I think there's time to talk about later.
Yeah, totally. Yes. Thank you. Yeah, and so Emma's position at King CD was written really to support the state's Envirothon. So it's been a really crucial position at the state level. And then across the states, AmeriCorps members play a huge role in supporting like Grady here, supporting the AmeriCorps program, or supporting the Envirothon program as the AmeriCorps member. This is, I guess, what I'm trying to get across about Envirothon is like Envirothon, it takes staff and it takes AmeriCorps members really to pull it off. We get some money from the commission, and some from WACD, some from Washington Conservation Society, a lot of fundraising, but really is kind of something that gets added into some of our additional meetings. Yeah, Madeline, do you have?
Yeah, can I just say real quick that Emma's position is about to end and sadly we have to replace her with somebody else for hiring position right now. So if you know anybody, would love to hear from them. That will be really difficult to replace.
Yeah.
Well, you're irreplaceable, but.
So, yeah, so that's kind of the committee. Kind of how our calendar works is we just finished up our state event in May. We will kind of move into thinking about the next year. The national competition happens here in July, and so August we do a strategic planning meeting. And we do it over Zoom, so you're more than welcome to join at any point. If you're just curious, you want to sit in, you can find out more information. We'd love to have you. Like to just ask more questions about Envirothon. Please reach out to any of us. And so then moving into the school year is really the time to start to have those conversations with high schools and advisors, environmental science clubs, FFA advisors, to plant the seed to get a team together to participate in the regional competitions that will happen in the spring. And depending on a conservation district's capacity, they might host like a prep session. I know like at Pear City, they do a lot of prep sessions to help plant the seed with students to start thinking about the competition. In Palouse, we don't have the capacity to do a lot of that, those prep sessions. So we've leaned a lot on the committee for any materials that have come out of those sessions. So there's a time like a CD will record their prep sessions and share that out. And we share that out then with our schools. So there's a lot of, and that's kind of a common theme we've heard as a barrier for conservation districts to participate, is that it takes a lot of time to help those students prep. It takes a lot of time to build those relationships with teachers, takes time to put on a regional competition. So as a state committee, we've been trying to lift up that barrier so that more CDs can participate. And COVID really helped change the game for us. We've put together some subcommittees that can focus on test writing, or subcommittees that are just focused on putting logistics together for the state event. And then creating a lot of digital resources that can be shared out. So there's been a huge effort to try to reduce that barrier. Another effort that we've been working on this year is doing some standardized test writing that will go out across the state to each regional event. And our test writing committee worked really hard this year. Thank you to everybody that was part of that. It's a lot of that. So, but that was a great opportunity to create like a test bank. And Madeline, I know you guys all, I can't thank you guys all enough for all the work you guys did on that this year. But kind of creating those standardized tests that could go out to each regional event. And rather than like going to an expert or writing a test in-house with your own staff, you're able to then have a test that's already ready to go. You just have to coordinate somebody who's going to proctor that. So we worked on a lot of that this last year, and hopefully we're going to have some debrief just to see how that went this year. And but that's another way that we're trying to reduce some of those barriers for our CDs to participate. So yeah, Jacob.
Hi. So I am one of the few people who don't know anything about Envirothon. So we are not the advisors. We are the facilitators of it.
Right.
Rock.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, I'm happy to take a step back there. So really, yeah, we are just facilitators. So we are the ones planting the seed with the advisors to say, hey, do you have a group of 5 kids that would be interested in participating, or can we tag this on with like what you're already doing with your FFA group or your environmental science group, you know, working on knowledge bowl or something. Like, can we do something that like ties back in with what either something they're already doing, or if there's an interest to participate. So we're just creating that opportunity for students to participate. So It depends, yeah, on whatever your level of commitment can be for those students. So it's creating either, if you can't create prep sessions, great. If you can only say, hey, the competition's happening at the end of March and hope you'll see you there, you know, we're gonna be there from 9 to 2. That's great too. But we've also been working at the state level to create, we have these, you know, Envirothon kits that live at park conservation districts throughout the state. So you can borrow those from a neighboring conservation district, or if you're interested in having your own, we've been working on some grant funding to make that happen. But there's 4 topics that the students study. So there's one soils, aquatic ecology, forestry, wildlife. And then there's a 5th topic that rotates every year. So this year was adapting to a changing climate was the topic. So the test is written, either the test is written or a scenario. So there's like a scenario that the students have to present on. All the other tests are just written, like either multiple choice, fill in the blank, things like that. They do have some sort of we try to have a hands-on component, and there's learning objectives that go with each test. So that either the test writers or the people proctoring know what the students should be expected to know. We also share that out with the advisors, so you can say, hey, this is what your kids should know for this test, so they can prepare. So yeah, so they get tested on those 5 different topics during that competition, a regional competition, in March. So yeah. Any other questions? That way, yeah, sorry.
Have like a few. Race, correct?
That's okay. This is the safe space. So yeah.
So the first one is, well, the Northeast region does not, to my knowledge, have representing.
That's great. Yeah.
And so, where that's what I'm working on, like, trying to tie it in the RCO grant in terms of getting scholarship funding and stuff for underserved communities that will try to participate in it. So they participate. So I guess like kind of, I hadn't really considered the point you was bringing up where it's like, we're just kind of the underbelly of this, the support for it. Like does it have to be like a school district that is setting this up, or does it have to be some sort of organization? Like, I mean, like, what's that mean?
In terms of like a team where the teams can.
What's the limit on our in developing that team and then trying to get it on the right path, essentially?
Yeah. Cindy, did you have that?
Well, I think he's wondering how much work he's going to have to play. So what you're just doing is you're introducing the program to the teacher and say, you know, different teachers at high school level, this 9th through 12th grade, okay. And then hopefully they will say, yeah, I'd like to do that. I think I've got a team of 5 kids. And then we kind of have the resources to give them. You're just basically the district that is supporting them on the fact of, yeah, great, we'll send you off to.
So like, this was just kind of, I think like that answers my question partially.
Partially, okay.
So like we have 3 very small school districts, Newport being the biggest one, which, you know, we might find a handful of students, but try like our idea was like theoretically we get 1 or 2 from Cusick or 1 or 2 from Selkirk. So it's kind of 3 school districts all partnering together on this Envirothon team. Like say under those instances, we get the students, but the teachers don't, we don't have a teacher to lead that. Like, can we find an alternative entity to lead that student's team? So like,
Yeah.
my idea is like, I have some connections with, the environmental science department down in Gonzaga, and I know potentially like some student teachers that would be interested in doing that. Like, would we be able to have them kind of lead those teams?
Absolutely. I don't think there's any rule. I mean, yeah, there's no rules that way. Yeah. So yeah, I think that would be a great idea. If like you could find a student advisor.
I have like potentially 1 Newport teacher that might do all of this, but they are very busy. So it's
Yeah.
like, well, I don't know what this is all going to entail. So you know, we'll see.
Yeah.
And so we're just trying to find like a opinion for that. And then, on top of that, like, I guess I'm curious if a big part of what we're trying to do is give resources to underserved communities to, you know, if they need things to help them kind of do this, like what specific resources would we need to itemize in that if we were trying to pull from our RCA grant to get that, what exactly do they need for this?
Yeah, so I mean, really, it's really not much, but there are some barriers which we've identified as like transportation is one for the day of to get to a competition. Especially from where you guys are in Northeastern, like if you're willing to commit to hosting a competition, a regional competition, you've got a lot of support here that would be happy to help put you on, like, we've got like a task list already built out of what you have to do. But the closest one right now for a competition would be North Central, which is like usually is in open August, Conservation CD, or down in Palouse. So it'd be a long drive, obviously, for the
That might be a possibility. We're working with KTNR on doing for a street competition on a location.
yeah.
That might be able to like if we essentially design those facilities for that, but like maybe could have like
Yeah, that would be
on
awesome.
that.
Yeah, yeah.
So we'll see.
So yeah,
Try and
yeah, that's awesome. Well, yeah, and there's some CDs that are thinking about hosting their first one next year too.
and then just
Yeah.
last question.
Yeah. No, we got lots of time, so yeah.
Like, what if we end up with more than 5 students wanting to do this? Can you have multiple teams in one region? Do they have to? With each
No.
other, or can we just all throw
Yeah.
in the larger?
Yeah, they would be competing against each other. So 5 people are the limit per team. So if you do have more, then encourage other kids to participate, and then like you would be bringing, a school would be bringing 2 teams from that school, and they would be competing against each other. Some teams in our area will like have like a kind of like a senior team and then a junior team, like the freshmen, sophomores that are learning, and then the junior seniors, you know, and that's been a really helpful, I think, model to help build the program, because if you start them young, we'd even had some interest expressed with like middle school students. They can't necessarily, like if they were to win, they can't go on to the state competition, but it is a good way to like maybe get things started at the local level, introduce them to Envirothon, and then hopefully they just keep going on from there. So it's kind of like, yeah, they have to working to build some sort of program. But yeah, schools can bring as many teams as they, so yeah.
Can I just learn?
Yeah, Cindy.
You can have 3 different schools, and this school had 1 student that comes in this room. They could all be a team, right?
That was my question.
And then
You
also,
combine schools
right.
to make a team.
yes,
Yeah.
you can, yes,
Okay.
yeah, it can be like their own little mini Envirothon club, right? Because we have or clubs, environmental science club. Also, if you had a school that wants to send 7 kids, which is great, 2 would be alternates and 5 would be a team. Okay, so it's a minimum 5, but these 2 alternates, they're still competing, because if you lose one of these, they need 5 to move on to the North American event, and this one gets to go in, because they've already, so they can sell you. So don't hesitate to, if they don't say, oh, we only have 3 together. You know, it's okay.
How does that work then? Like, that was my question, just coming from a more rural area. We have tiny schools, or 1 and 2B schools. If you're combining multiple schools to make 1 team, when I'm seeing in competitions, the teams are from specific schools, then what would the team involve essentially? Do they just create a?
I think so. I
Yeah,
think that's
absolutely.
what they want. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Because
because
once
our
they're-
teachers have been really hesitant to enter the program because they didn't have enough students. But we have small schools that if I offered the ability to combine to make a team, I think I would have more engagement in the program.
Once they're at competition anyway, they're not known as their school.
Okay,
Yeah.
We try and keep that bias away. So they're like, sometimes they're named team A1, B1, whatever. sometimes they name them Osprey, Eagle, you know, it just depends on who's running the competition.
Okay,
So they have a fake team name.
okay,
So,
thank you.
yeah, not a problem.
Yeah, all really good questions.
There's something on the website that it's not even school, it's like an after the club or it's an event that people sign up. Not like directly for soccer, but instead it's a environment, so it's basically students.
Okay.
The way you do that can be varied and in less next to it, you have a school program, unrelated to the schools. It just is some type of private kids with a facilitator. One of them. Right. So.
Oh, great questions. Yeah. Yeah, and does that kind of make sense about like there's the like regional, state, national, right? North American. Okay. So yeah, that kind of gets built out. So has everybody been to our website or visited? I'm just gonna show this more information. Obviously, we're all here to talk about it, but I just want to show some additional resources. So our website, WashingtonEnvirothon.org here. And this is just supported right now. Brianna is the one managing it as our website editor. But it is just houses all of our information at the state level and talks about the regional competitions as well. So here on the front page, we talked about the state events, and it's a great place just for more information. Just so you're kind of aware, like here's a list just of study resources to help those teams get started and study up on those 5 different topics. A recorded webinar, Envirothon 101 webinar. So this would be also a good one to check out if you're interested to just find out more or share with your teachers and students. So this was from this past year, but yeah, it is a great, just a great opportunity to find out more. So, so also other things kind of to point out under resources here, during COVID, the committee spent a good deal of time working to build out these tools to use across the state. So you can see it's broken down per topic. So this was the rotating topic for the competition this year. But yeah, if you go under like aquatic ecology resources, it breaks down, here's a study guide, here's the learning objectives of everything that the students will be asked to know on that test, and then kind of a study guide to help guide them. And if you bring up this, the AmeriCorps member before Emma, Rosie, she had done some work around this kind of to build out, if you only have 1 hour to study, here's what you should learn about a watershed. Here's a video to watch, the parameters, talking about macroinvertebrates. If you have 2 hours to study, here's where you can dive into more information, and so on. So it's really broken down to help the advisors and the students to have that information right at their fingertips. And hopefully it takes, again, that lift off from the CDs to provide a lot of prep work. It's kind of already built in here. So this is a great resource to be able to give to teachers.
Steve Rose for coffee teachers, this is what we're set up for. And she had it from the class greenhouse, and it's fun. Here's this resource list, and she was like someone from her forestry class in high school, someone from the ag class, 2 kids from the environmental greenhouse class, and one other from the physics science class. And then they split up. It was literally 2 weeks before competition. They split up. They said each kid take one of the, if you have 1 hour, learn this. And they did very like middle of the road, above average, just by using these. And then they also borrowed the buckets that the state environment provided to our conservation. So I would highly recommend, if you're talking with the teacher, send us along and just like follow the 1 hour thing. It really is related to what's supposed to be on.
And I totally agree with her. I had the same thing happen with a team this year, late in the game. went to the site, did all the things, borrowed the tubs from Snohomish. We even sent in our forester to go check our class. I depend, try and get professionals that are gonna talk to the students about each of those, so they can actually ask questions back and forth. Whether or not you have NRCS, they can assist with soils, or, Fish and Wildlife can assist with the wildlife, you know what I mean? Because it really helps for those kids to actually have that professional go, oh, okay, that makes sense. And then forestry tools, they're actually telling them what they're for, what they do, and how to calculate things, so. There's a lot of resources on here, and just a side note. If you can see how that Rosie wrote that out, she's a school teacher now, so it all makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
So to clarify, based on what you said, so. Again, we're facilitating, we're not advising.
Right.
But we can provide outside resources, right? Okay, so like,
Even if you can't have much to read.
oh, right. So like, we could set up like a monthly. Oh, I think somebody said prep session, so that would be an example of that, where we bring in an expert and then they. Right?
Yeah, in fact, I went and spoke with Mount William Christian School who competed. And she even had me do the watershed model to these high schools, which usually high schoolers are like that. But they loved it and they learned a lot, and now they're really involved. Even more so than they were before, is this conversation, and it's pretty powerful. They can see in action.
Yeah, so for our region, we have a lot of different things like that, but one of the ones that are counting is a quality Envirothon class that we actually co-teach, and the end game is to be in Envirothon and participate. So I just have to make, like, if I'm teaching a macro purpose, less than 19 basic macro purpose lesson, which is almost 1 hour to study. And then the only time it's ever come up is that, kind of like what actually the teacher who was like, what should I study, what's going to be in the class? I just always point them to this. So I'm not giving them answers to like what's going to be on the test. I'll say, you should look at this on our study guide, or you should look at the objectives. So I still teach the class, participate, and then have a question about what are the water quality parameters, talk about it, and study it together. But I'm not saying this.
Okay, and I will say that for the most part, we do try and make it fair across the state, but. When it comes to North America and even by the state, they're going to be looking at trees where that location is. So those students on the east that may not have a lot of western red cedar need to know what those, need to study up. Because if they're going to New Brunswick, they're going to have on the test what animals are in New Brunswick, what type of soils they have in New Brunswick, so they really have to know. Oh, boy, I could be studying up on those species instead of just the ones, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, and other resources on there, there's videos. So during COVID, we did a lot of those prep sessions. A lot of this information is it hasn't been updated per se for COVID, but there is a lot of this information is all still relevant. So these videos, any videos that are being created at the state level or by other CDs, we are uploading those to have as another resource for teams to participate. So yeah, lots of really good resources here. Yeah, there's other. This is probably not up to date, but team trainings and webinars again. Like if we had a series, here's that 101 webinar that we did in January. Yeah, and the others, here's one that the Northwest Regional Envirothon they had put on in February. You can register here for that workshop. So if there's one kind of in the area, we try to promote that on the website here, and again serve as a resource for students and advisors in that region. Here, competition rules. So the national competition rules, getting down to the nitty-gritty information on the current competition. So if you were hosting a regional competition, your information would go up on here. So let's see, shown here is where all the regional competitions are. So these all link out to the registration, they did go out to the registration form if they had it, probably it's all not up there, but here's like, this would have linked out to their registration form for the regional events in March. So one-stop shop really for all your advisors and teachers to get them interested, has all the information that they need to know for the current competition. Here's information for the current issue. So there is kind of the same study guide, study resources. It's determined by the National Envirothon what the topic is. So they'll put out a set of resources to go along with that as well. So those are the main things from here. Also, I think there's a link out to the national.
Can I bring something up?
Oh yeah, please.
So, those national environments, I've been to like many, I love them. So good. They, are about 5 years out. Okay, so those topics have been picked. So next year's was probably 5 years ago. Okay, so to be a host state, which they've been asking for Washington to be a host state, it takes an insane amount of work. You're gonna need those 5 years. You gotta fundraise. It takes about $500,000 to put on an event. Because they're huge. I mean, these students are coming from all over. And it's gotta be up in college. You have field trips as far as like they'd be going to somewhere really special in Washington State. So like when you're in Arizona, Grand Canyon, Niagara Falls, in New York. So those topics is what I was getting at, and what wasn't created from the national, just that they were created from that state hosting. The state comes up with the topic. Okay.
So yeah, on the national website, again, there's resources. This is more at that national level. They have about 50 some teams that are participating. So it gets more tailored into that. But again, it serves as a resource for where the learning objectives, if any learning objectives changed, it'd all be coming down from the national environment. So well, and then thinking about other resources, as I mentioned, we're trying to do an effort to do some statewide writing, standardized testing, standard tests that can be used across the state. We're also have materials out there, graphics, some flyers that's made in Canva. You can just plug in your information that can get shared out for the schools that you're advertising to. So I think asking yourself that question of like, hey, why am I not recruiting for an Envirothon team locally? I'm sure we have an answer for that, and to help you address that. Or if we don't have it, that's something we want to work towards, because yeah, the ultimate goal is to get more teams involved across the state. So I just like as a ballpark, like the Southeast competition, we had 9 teams that participated. Northeast, how many do you guys have?
A total of 14.
13 teams.
Said.
Yeah.
So would we be North Central if we're in Moses Lake, would that be considered North Central?
I'm not sure what it was.
It goes off of the, and I have it back in my room.
It shows on, look at the last post. If you click on that one, it shows, I think it's. You might be included in that.
We go off of the WC.
Douglas grants.
That
region.
so I think the conservation is South Douglas, Dairy, Foster Creek.
Oh, there.
Oh, right here at the bottom. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So Sharon.
Douglas, open arms.
Grants.
Heck yeah.
Well, so not every county is listed probably on here. So there's a lot of flexibility. If they are like, if you don't have a regional that's nearby, doesn't mean you can't compete. And we would just have to work it.
people go to state, it's not just like who wins regionals, it's also the first place team for each conservation. And so even if you send one team and it's hosted at a conservation reserve, or one team will go on state, whether or not they want or not. Right. Yeah. So
It's per conservation district, so some conservation, there's two in Douglas County, so two teams from Douglas County to go. Or,
yes,
okay,
not like.
okay.
So, as you can see, we're missing South Central. We're trying real hard to get them. We haven't got that look yet. No, but that doesn't matter. If North Yakima wanted to send a team, they could go tie into wherever they need to send that. We'll take anybody.
We'll make it work, yeah.
That's right.
Cool. Does anybody have anything else to add? Otherwise, we're gonna jump into talking about the state's environmental petition. Does anybody else have anything? Words of inspiration for those that were still trying to recruit.
Yeah, person, which is like the elephant of the room of how do you guys fund it throughout the various CVs, because I know some people have rates and charges, like use that. Other people are writing grants, like I want to hear all the options.
Ours is funded through the ecology grants, but we're also going after the OLG.
Some people use their implementation. Some people make up that they were actually working on something else that can charge the grants. Yeah.
We also thought of 5,000 grant and that new commission, putting on.
Yes.
Is paying for
And especially when it comes to the state bank, get a lot more. Help with that, so it's a big undertaking, do the state bank, but we have so many awesome people that don't think you're on your own through the state bank, because you're not. You're not at all, so. Don't be intimidated to jump in, really.
Yeah, police, we don't have rates and charges, and we are just piecemealed with grants. So there's a grant called Rural Kaiser, it's through WSU, and it's focused on soil erosion education. So that's what we use.
Yeah, I made it with the town, with my clean water district money for my county, because environmental science is part of the town.
I think it's a piecemeal together like it's fine. There's soil animals. Piecemeal as you're writing grants that you're gonna do. Education for wildlife or general outdoor education and you'll reserve for students, so we just kind of file under education and organize.
And it's outdoors.
Field day. It's
Yeah, I serve on a simple basis on society as a board member. We do scholarships for students going into like greater education. But I'm firmly listening to all of this. You could make a reasonable argument for on society, so you could get funds that way because most on societies and stuff. So
Well, you can need a plant society, I believe also has a different.
And that diversity grant, which I don't think we brought up yet, but you're going to, right?
Yeah.
That's funded, or it used to be, I'm pretty sure it is, by the National Forest, right? Or so like US Forest Service. So they have this money resource, but it's specific, but there's usually a way for.
Yeah, and Envirothon itself used to be funded by Canon. Canon used to be a sponsor of the national.
The Cameron company.
Yeah.
And they used to give out big time prize money. Well, now the NCF means National Conservation Foundation, just so you know, okay? They took over once Canon, they lost Canon, so that they could offer support as well financially. Because those students on the North American level, first, second, third place, they get scholarship.
The Biden administration just handed $2.6 billion to NOAA to distribute it to like climate resilience programs, workforce, education, all of that stuff. It hasn't been begun to be distributed yet, but keep an eye out on, I think, NOAA's website for income, because I think 86 million of that is going to the state of Washington. Wow. And especially for the coastal counties, that's all like a huge chunk of that is going that. I think the only piece of it we're gonna get out of it is the climate smart agricultural funding out of it, and some of the in and out funding. The bulk of it is all coastal wetland restoration and sand and habitat restoration.
But they're gonna look at that Columbia base, sure, right?
That's what, well, I'm working with another grant writer from our county auditor's office to find out in the language if we can justify pulling from that, because it's like.
You're the biggest watershed going into that.
Yeah, I know, but there's that new Supreme Court decision where they said that wetlands that are potentially not continuously connected year round are like no longer protected and things like that. So they're using like that precedence to say, well, unless it's a continual water source, we can't like justify funding for it and stuff. So it's just, we're just trying to figure out these things right now.
Claire, Larry, I see your hand up. Yeah, go ahead. We can all hear you.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to respond to the gentleman who raised the issue about underserved communities. And I can share that in September of 21, the Conservation Society created a special support program for to try and encourage student tribal teams to participate in Envirothon. We've sent out letters the last 2 years to all 29 federally recognized tribes, letting them know about Envirothon, that there was this support opportunity. I've had very limited response. I had a couple folks each year, and happened to be the tribal chair, say, "Oh, that sounds great. I'll bring it up with the tribal council," and then I didn't hear anything else. So I think I very briefly mentioned when I was there yesterday that I'm gonna devote some personal time to hitting the road and seeing if I can go talk person to person to tribal leadership, and maybe that'll be more effective than the email letters that we've been sending out. But I'm going to keep working that issue, and there is a little bit of money available to help these teams, teacher stipend, travel, that sort of thing. So that's one slice of the underserved community that the society is trying to address. All right, thank you.
So we've been trying to do effort really to bring more tribal students more involved.
Oh, I know, I understood that. And what organization providing that?
He's chair or president of the Washington Conservation Society, which I'm a part of as well, and you can be a part of this well for over a year. I encourage all of you to be a part of that. I applied for the Envirothon funding with my personal funds because of that, because it's so important to me that we get supported. It's really important.
Awesome. No, that's great. It's in Larry.
Yeah,
Yeah, thank you. I'm actually working directly with one of the education coordinators for the Kalispell Tribe Natural Resources, who's running like their own quality programs, to see if we can pull some members who are from like the Salish schools and stuff over there, and see if we can pull them out, get them interested in participating in these teams. Where he's not confident we'll get a full 5 just out of those schools, but he's sure we can get a couple of them to have like represent. So I think that'll be awesome. I know it's nice to know that we can get some funding for them directly without having to like being on our part. So we're down sure.
Claire or Renee, did either of you have any words of wisdom you wanted to pass on about Envirothon or
Sure. So this is Renee with Walla Walla County Conservation District. Our Envirothon Club is brand new as of 2023, not fall of 2022. I mean, they started in January. Very talented group of people. Just they went through and looked at all the resources on the website. They read through everything. I mean, talk about a bunch of go-getters. And really all I did was help them a couple times with soils, give them some practical tactile things that they could sink their teeth into. But they had a parent advisor who was really leading the way. And then they had a faculty advisor who is just kind of a figurehead, but their AP advisor. And so really it's up to the students on how much they want to go forth. So we're just really fortunate to get, 6 kids that are doing phenomenal, and they're floored by the type of work that we do, and that's actually a job. And so when it talks about job creation and moving for the next generation, that's how we're going to do it. Thanks.
Thanks, Renee. Thanks for sharing that. So we're going to see how Renee's team did at state. Because it was just like she said, it was their first year. So it's super exciting. Their first year, they just started this year, and they won. They won state. They're headed on the nationals. So yeah. So the state competition. Chris, do you want to talk about it? Do you want to? Oh, awesome. Thanks.
Yeah, so Pierce Conservation District was the local host for this year's state event. But like we were saying, we were not responsible for the whole event. A few years ago, we kind of switched to more of a committee approach, which means we really relied on the testing committee to recruit test writers and vet the test, get the scenario written, and organize those resources, which was really a huge load off. And then we participated in the logistics committee, which is all the behind the scenes things. But I leaned on Jody and Claire and Emma, especially, who coordinated a lot of last year's event to kind of help us understand what it would look like to host a state event and go back to the 2-day format, which we hadn't done since about 2019, where teams arrive first day and do team building and dinner and outings, and then compete the next day. So it was really nice to get back to that format, but it was a new experience for us to host a state event, and we really appreciated the committee approach, which really relies on the whole state, which is kind of a cool feature of Envirothon, is that you get to work with conservation districts around the state regularly. We meet monthly to help coordinate this, support the regional events and get those off the ground, so the teams, by the time they come to state, they know what an Envirothon is, and the advisors know kind of what to expect. And then the state event is where they get to come together, in this case with 11 teams from 4 different regions. So like we were saying, if you win your county, you can come represent your county, your conservation district at state. So we had at one time 12 teams signed up to come to Soundview Camp, which is a really awesome setting in Pierce County on the Key Peninsula. And so it was cool to hear from some of the teams, the advisors, their kids had never seen anything like this, right? So there were some, the Garfield Blues team was swimming in the sound and fishing and just enjoying kind of being there. And so it was really nice to see that again. But yes, the committee approach really takes the load off. It's still quite a bit of work, but it really helps bring things together. And like we mentioned, Walla Walla High School was the champion this year. They won first place in their first year participating, which is super exciting. So they'll be going to Canada. They have their passports. They got their planes booked. Next month they'll be flying to New Brunswick, which is going to be quite the excursion. And then there's the second and third place, Tesla STEM High School, which I think was also maybe their first time participating, and they came in a close second. And then Avanti High School, Olympia, placing third. Yes.
Who pays for those teams to go?
That is a great question. We do to an extent. The committee through the auction in the fall, the trivia this evening, and then funding from the commission, you can put a little bit towards paying for their flights and registration to go. So we're funding them up to $750 per person this year. It is kind of expensive to go to New Brunswick, so that doesn't get all the way. But it goes a long way, and we pay their $1,800 registration fee to go to the event. So yes, things like the fundraising things that we offer are crucial. Last year was very, very expensive also, and so we had our account was a little bit lower than we would like, so we started to build it up again with successful auctions and trivia nights for sure. The next slide has the whole scoreboard, just if you're curious how your team, if you have a team, like how they did overall. It was great to see the diversity, and some teams did really well in this area, and others needed more focus on this. And the oral presentation is really, that's where they can earn their points by giving a really professional presentation to a panel of 3 judges about their approach to solving an issue. So we have a couple judges here, and I think it's the coolest job at Envirothon to hear from the kids and see what their approaches would be. So that was the final scoring. If you want to go to the next one, so we could do it too. This violates the rules of Happy Angels slides from yesterday, but I just wanted to show just some of the scenes so you can kind of picture and visualize what Envirothon could look like or may look like, you know, in your region. But going around to the different stations and team building around the campfire and exploring, it really is a fun time. It's very cool and fun, and we need a host for next year, so I'm trying to see how cool it is to be the host. It means you don't have to drive as far either if you host, so that's a plus.
Well, we like to rotate it back and forth throughout the state, so it's not always on the west side, just as a fair to the east side, you know, students, you know, at all. So.
Got great space on lighting for it.
So yeah, I would be happy to lend my experience from this year and all the lessons learned to whoever decides. We're hoping, you know, maybe by the end of wave we'll have at least a couple people on the hook or interested for next year. So
Let's talk about the commission.
About 15 years ago.
the commission.
Yeah, just checking.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I can look. I didn't get to go to that state event, I can't remember what I had going, but,
We've got a giant like wildlife sliding school. Like should be like here. And then it's got the community forest, which is already, that's already set up for the event. Yeah, now it's all.
Yeah, that's great. But it is basically a sleepaway camp, like 6th grade outdoor camp. That's kind of the setting for Envirothon, and the kids love it. I think the advisors, for the most part, like it, but they got to stay, you know, with all their teenagers.
they're
Yeah.
on like a summer camp location like that. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. And yes, the commission every year awards $10,000 to support the running of the state event, which basically pays for the venue pretty much. This year, we were able to use some extra for the registration fee as well, which is great. And then WACD also contributed $5,000, which is really going to help send that team to nationals, because it'll be about more like $6,500 to send the team to nationals. And so that really helps cover that, plus some funding from the Washington Conservation Society as well. So there is some funding available, plus the fundraising helps make it happen. But
And you guys all need to go to trivia night.
helps support
It's so fun.
it's for the children. I think also we'll skip the surveys for now. I think at our strategic planning, we can go through the survey details more and what the advisors especially thought of the marathon competition and ideas for next year and everything. A lot of it is about resources and preparation, just like what we've been talking about here, the bins and the online resources and tests and everything like that. But yeah, successful state event. So thanks to everyone who sent team and contributed. I'll turn it back over to Jody here.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, and thank you for hosting. Pierce was amazing. They are good ones to learn from. Thanks to everybody for considering hosting next year. So, yeah, we really only have about 15 minutes left of our session here. So I'm not going to go into probably any official business. We'll save that for ours. But I would like to talk about just a few things. The diversity grants, Emma, if you'd be willing to talk about that, and then also the bins, just for those CEs that are bins. You wouldn't mind talking about those?
Yeah, so this year for a second round of the NPF diversity grant, which supports outreach and resources for traditionally underserved students. And what we applied for was kind of a two-part approach. Part one was addressing lack of resources. In our previous grant, they put together a set of study bins. So 4 bins, one for each of the core topics, full of tools that they might need to use, and binders full of activities to talk them through how to use everything and all kinds of activities that they can do. So that was one part of this year's grant. We applied for another round of bins. And then the other part is transportation, because we've heard from a lot of teams that could be a barrier to them attending. So starting for next year's competition, we'll have, depending on how many regions we have compete, we'll have 200 to 250 allotted per region for regional competition, and then a pool of $1,000 for the state competition that teams can apply to receive funding to maybe rent a van, cover, other transportation. So we're this this week we're distributing the bins that we've made. We've got 3 sets. And so those are going to be going to Foster Creek, Walla Walla, and Skagit. Yeah, so if you guys want to connect with me, I can get the bins checked out to you guys. There are some like regional specifics. I want to make sure you guys get the right ones. But also, if your district is making a set of bins, we do have a complete materials list and all of the stuff we put in the binder. It was about $620 per set of 4 bins. But there are definitely ways to adapt those depending on what your price range is. So I like to have full line. Yeah. There you go. Save a lot of money by just going out and picking up goals.
And Emma's been working hard to put the latest ones together. They're just right back here actually. So if you're interested in seeing them, take a peek in those bins. So yeah, thank you.
She really did a great job. She stepped in, filled some pretty big shoes, and she filled them really well. I mean, she did a great job. So we're gonna miss her. It's always hard to see these champions go. You know, they've done such huge work. So thank you. Yeah.
I think everything else we'll just hold off on. So any other questions out there from other districts or anything that we missed from the committee that we share? Yeah, please encourage folks to participate in trivia tonight. Anybody can participate, and a team can be made up of whoever. So please have them going. Get there early. We'll start at 7:30, but they can show up right after dinner as we start just setting up. So we'll be taking cash, check, credit card for those. And again, $20. Yeah.
First one.
Yeah. $20 for staff and supervisors and $5 for AmeriCorps and insurance.
And the current issue for next year is listed there, and I can't remember what state it's gonna be in.
New York.
Oh, that'll be a good one.
Yeah.
That'll be fun. Oh, yeah, it's at the same
Okay.
school, is it in Geneva?
I know.
See. I believe so, it's the, Bill, what's that?
I think forestry.
Oh, yeah, I really don't know. Okay, yeah, it's different.
I think it's bad, Bill, first, it was not, in not that it's that. Anyway, I'm sorry, but the campus is amazing, I'm just gonna put that.
So we do need to fill our bank account to take them over to New York, so yeah. So. Cool.
And I also encourage you, especially you folks who've been doing this a while, go to a North American event. I'm serious. I used to go.
That would be fun.
Paid for by WCP.
Cool.
That
All right.
or
Anything else from online folks? More information. All right, well, you got a few minutes. We'll be back in here at 4 o'clock for our final session of the day. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Larry, Claire, Amanda. Thanks for joining us.
You sure? Right. I was looking for a car.